Hi, and welcome back to another episode of All the Cards on the Table. In this week's episode, we are dedicating it to all the wonderful men in the world out there. And we just want you to know that we are listening. We are learning to listen. Keep on listening to this podcast, and we will discuss why in just a moment. Hello, everyone. You're listening to All Cards on the Table podcast with Claire and Sylvia, a show that talks about how men and women aren't so different from each other. We just don't speak the same language. We will dissect every topic and put an end to miscommunication. So, get ready to get uncomfortable. Hi and welcome back. My name's Claire Attio.
Hi everyone, this is Sylvia and I.
And so this podcast has been inspired by the Dax song that is trending at the moment. And the name's gone straight on my head.
To be a man.
To be a man. Thank you,
to
Sylvia.
Be a man.
No,
I'm still shaking from the song too. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's a beautiful song.
It's
sad.
We have touched on this subject before, but I think we need to really recognize that there are a lot of good men out there, and they are struggling at the moment as the divine feminine kind of rises within us, and we're wanting that equality, we're wanting that empowerment, we're stepping into all that we can be. We're quite a force to be reckoned with, and I think it's just as women to acknowledge that we are a force to be reckoned with, and we are kind of, I'm going to go back to that dance scenario now. We are learning to kind of dance with these energies and just dance with us. And if we stand on your toes, then forgive us. And if you stand on our toes, then we forgive you, because it's that reciprocal energy. It needs to be that reciprocal energy, doesn't it? It needs to be, we need to really get into that flow. But going back to the song, he's talking about how nobody understands, nobody really cares, there's nobody really to talk to, and even within his own relationship, and I don't know whether he's actually written this from a personal experience or whether it's from an observation within society, but he's saying that the only role that he feels is desired from him is one to bring in the money and pay the bills.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this lyrical part where he says, our only function is to work and slave. I mean, that I'm like, oh, that's really, and I've, how many times have we heard that from other men, and they feel their only worth is what you can't provide. And if you can't provide anything, you're worthless. And that's how they feel. Like, and that's also something that has been instilled in us as women, because from our mothers or our grandmothers, they always say, especially parents, I would say parents, they say, find them good men that can provide and take care of you.
Yeah.
They don't, hopefully now that's changing, but I know when I was growing up, that was one of the main things, is find someone that I heard a lot from. I actually was pretty lucky enough for my mother to tell me in graded music, find someone who loves you and respects you, and everything comes with it. And so I never actually looked at what they were, how much money they made or anything like that, or where they would provide, because she's always told me, besides a successful man, there's a successful woman. So it's a partnership. And that's what we need to instill now, that it is a partnership both equally. And that's what we have always talked about in this podcast, how we're all equal, and we just need to learn how to communicate better, because it's our communication that needs a lot of work. And let's be honest, we're not the greatest of listeners. We want to talk and we want to communicate and we want to explain ourselves. But I mean, it is proven fact that what I say to someone, it's not what they're going to listen. Even if though to me, what I'm saying, the words, they will not receive them exactly how I set them. And this is scientifically proven. So we already have that going against us. And then and let's add like what you have been fed all your life. The men are supposed to be providers, and if they're not providing, they're worthless. And one of the other things that I was raised by great women, by the way, and hardworking women. My aunts are amazing. My grandmothers are hardworking. But one of the things that they've always told me their success and was that when their husbands or partners would lose a job, they took it upon themselves to get that extra job, so them to provide, because they need a break or they need help. So
well, I think they worked in partnership, didn't they?
yeah.
Even though in looks, there's something to be said for the traditional relationship. There seems to be a greater understanding, and that working in unison, working as an actual partnership. And I think that's what we're lacking these days, because as you said, we were brought up with, and you still hear it now. You still hear young generations saying it now, and find yourself a good man that can provide for you. But that goes right the way back before to the times when women had absolutely no rights. Even if they were the firstborn, they wouldn't be entitled to anything from any family inheritance. They would have to marry into money to be assured that they wouldn't starve to death. And so the language that we're using is still being used, and so it's still programming the mind, but the reality is very, very different. And we have to take into consideration, like your grandparents, your great aunts, your mother, probably even my mother. My mother worked, but her primary job was the family and my father. And then she would have like a little side hustle of her own going on. And she would, as you said, if there were issues in the family, or there was something, or there was a downfall in the finances for whatever reason, she would up the ante on that. But her responsibility was within the home. Now, we're not saying we go back to that, but what we're saying is we can't hold on to those old imaginations of what a man should be like and then demand this new dynamic and expect them to know how to fit in with that.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm hearing you, it's absolutely true. You going back to what you said earlier about the dynamics of marrying someone that can provide for you is because the women weren't able to work or have even checking accounts. No, that's not too long ago. And so you had to find someone that was going to be able to provide, because if you married someone and they didn't have anything, they didn't have the means, you weren't going to be able to do much because you were a woman, and the laws you wouldn't be able to, because the laws wouldn't permit you. The society wouldn't permit you. So you would suffer a great deal had you married someone who doesn't have the means to provide for a family. So of course, that was a sense of survival. We are not there anymore. We're more than capable of working. Women are successful, they're CEOs, are bringing just as much or even more money. Doesn't matter, those laws no longer apply. So why are we still
as I said, I think
men
it's the language. We're programmed. We hear it as children. We say it unconsciously. We're not bringing it into the conscious awareness of what we're actually saying for a lot of people, and those expectations, because we've been telling ourselves, or we've been hearing it for all of our primary years. We then have these expectations, but then we get angry when men have expectations, I mean, I'm the first to jump on my brother when he starts his, my wife should be barefoot and pregnant, at the sink type malarkey. And I know he says it in jest, but I'm straight in there on it because I think, how dare you? But if we're going to be talking about equality, we have to take responsibility as women to ensure that how we're acting is actually bringing about that equality. And I think this is where with the balances, you've always got if you think of old balancing scales, they always take a little time to actually measure out. When you're changing the dynamics, when you're changing it from one side to the other, they take a little, that's and so we're in that phase, and the only way we're actually going to speed that up is for women to become consciously aware of the language they're using, the expectations they hold, and how they're treating the man that's in their life. I mean, I'm not saying that we go back and we pamper to their every whim just for survival, because I don't want that, but there should be that mutual respect, that mutual care, that mutual nurturing.
Absolutely.
And instead of trying to change them, because this is what I see a lot. I mean, I'm sure you do in your coaching as well, but women have this habit of falling in love with somebody and then wanting to change them. And men do it as well, but I see it mostly in women at the moment. Especially when they start their family. Everything's hunky-dory until that partnership decides that they're going to start a family, and then all sorts of expectations and assumptions come into play. And it's like, you off to work and you earn the money, which is what that song's talking about, is that feeling of nobody wants to listen to me, nobody wants to value me, nobody thinks that I have any wisdom to share. I'm just there to go to work and bring home the money.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about this one time when I was talking about how my father said that one time that he just feels he's only valued for what he brings. Like nobody really knows him. And he also brought up the fact that I don't think people generally don't care how men feel, because they're supposed to, for some idea, or we have this ideology that men are made strong and heart of stone and nothing can break them. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Can I just say that the men that I've worked with after a breakup suffer much, much worse than women do. It breaks my heart. And I have to stay strong. I can't just sit there and cry, right? Because I finally got them to open up. And when I hear the stories, I'm just like, we are so insensitive. And the reason why is because men, when they get together, they don't talk about relationships. They don't talk about how they feel. They don't talk about how their partners.
Let's be honest, from a female perspective. As young women, when I was a young one, and I know it still goes on today, as young women, if you had an emotional boy in your class, what did you think of them? How did you see them?
Right. No, I meant within themselves. Like if they go out to the buddies, they don't talk. That's not what men are talking about. They're not talking about their relationships, at home relationships. Very rarely do they do that. And if they do, it's bypassing. Oh man, I'm having a problem with a wifey, or I'm going through this problem with my girlfriend or my partner. And it's in very passing, and they're usually, yeah, man, that sucks. I went through that too. Okay, let's continue shooting, or let's continue playing, and blah blah blah. So it's never addressed to the point where they can let it out and have a conversation about this and how they feel. As we women do. Like if I call my girlfriend my best friend right now, I'll be like, oh my God, he just did this and blah, 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 blah. And I just totally vented it out. It's out of my system. It's everything. And sometimes she'll call me, it's like, no, that's on you, honey, that you did that. And I was like, ooh, yeah, that was kind of me, right? So then I have to go back and say, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. Not my favorite thing to say in the world, but it's, I have someone to talk to about relationships because it's absolutely normal for us women to express how we feel and our emotions.
No.
Men don't have that outlet.
No.
And by the time that you're already listening to the emotions, it's so bad. And they're at a point that if a man starts to talk about their emotions with you, they're about to have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, they're on the edge already.
It got to that point that you're going to. It's not until then will you listen to that. Because they have been taught from little kids, like you said earlier, like, oh, don't show your emotions because you're a wuss, whatever, to suppress those feelings.
It's women doing that, it's girls doing that, but the other boys in the class are watching that, and so they they suck it up.
Or so you talk too much.
Yes.
Or you talk too much. You're like a girl, you talk too much, because girls talk too much. And that's kind of how they always tell us. And but they don't have that outlet. So when I hear those stories, and I feel like that we need to do better as women to listen to our men, to our fathers, our brothers, our sons. And one thing that I know that I'm doing differently with my son is I want him to express how he feels. And in my household, we talk about our feelings and how someone feels. But because he's, like you said, listening in school, he's already picking up on the fact that he's not supposed to talk about his emotions. And I said, that doesn't work here. So even then, if you as a parent, you're doing everything to raise your son to have healthy emotions, to express how they feel, also tell them that if they hear that in school, that's not okay, because they will pick that up in school, because they're going to see their other friends who probably are not hearing the same thing they're hearing at home that you're telling them. And they will start to hold back those feelings. And I've noticed that now as my son is getting older, he's starting to hold back on the feelings. He had got hurt the other day, and I know it hurt him because, I mean, it was pretty bad. And he didn't cry. And I know he wanted to, but he didn't, because all his little friends were around there. And then I told him, it's like, it's okay to cry. He's like, I know, but I was embarrassed in front of my friends. And I'm like, well, that's not okay, because if they're your friends, they would totally understand. And he wouldn't. He was holding it in. And it just like, my goodness, no matter how much I spoke with him, it's they're picking it up. They're picking it up from videos, they're picking it up from social media, they're picking it up from others. So now we as parents have to double down on making sure that our sons have an outlet to talk to, that you provide a safe place for them to talk and express how they feel. And I wanted to say that when you do that, don't put inputs. Don't tell them what to do. Do not say, well, maybe you should have done this, or don't do this, or you should feel. I want you just to let them vent. And the only thing out of that you should be saying is, that's tough, man. I know how that feels. Or, okay, listen, I'm hearing you. Yeah. And that's it. Be an active listener. It starts from very young. And even if you're doing, like I said, I'm a coach and I work with this, and I have my son, and I'm struggling because he's picking up from other people. So I have to correct that. So when he got hurt, I was just like, it's okay to cry, and it's fine, and everybody will understand. And then he was like, okay. Then he was like, it does hurt. And then he just let loose. I can feel his body was really tense, and he just got loose, and I hugged him, and he's like, now everybody's gonna think I'm crying, I'm a baby. I'm like, no, absolutely not. No. And you know what? If they say that, then they're not really your friends. Okay, we don't do that. You imagine if I am aware and I work with this and I'm seeing it in my son. I can't imagine another son, another boy, another teenager who doesn't have those outlets and they're already dealing with that, by the time they become men, they're not, they feel
Well,
they feel
it's
so worthless.
and the one thing that I'm seeing is, and the one thing that's becoming very apparent is that, as you said, is it everything's come to kind of crunch time. Everything, they're on that pinnacle of dropping off the off the face of the earth. To be honest, they can't take any more, and there has been no place to vent. I've been getting two types of guys at the moment. I have the guy that has kind of reached the limit and they've tried to speak with women, and this is the most prevalent. They've tried to speak with their girlfriends, their partners, their wives, but they're not heard. Everything they do is incorrect because it's not her way. So there's a lot of micromanaging going on within women, and we have spoken about that before.
Yeah.
The other type is they have been so closed down as children that they are terrified to open up. They're terrified to open that box, to even start looking at what's going on in their own bodies, in their own minds, in their own energies, because they've been told it's wrong, it's bad, it's going to make them weak. And yet holding on to it is eating them alive.
Yes.
And these are the two that, and so it's like a really tough, hard nut to crack. And I think that's probably not the best analogy either, because that is how they see it. I cannot crack this nut. It's then I'm then going to be broken. And that is a big fear in a lot of men.
That's the majority of men. You just actually reminded me of another one of my clients in this very early on. I remember that nope, very strict macho, like, I mean, like, I'm a man kind of deal. I'm not gonna budge in. And one of the exercises I made him do was to do something that he would never normally do, and that is to make a fool of himself on purpose in public. Of course, that was not going to happen. So I was like, okay, what's the best way to do it? We're going to go karaoke then. Karaoke. Wouldn't budge. I'm not going to do that. And I said, everyone here is either they don't care, or they're drunk and they're not going to remember you. But this is your opportunity to let everything out.
Yeah.
So I want you to pick a song that is really high, that you can almost scream. Pick a hot, like, heavy metal or something like that. Let it out. And this the only reason I saw him is because he had just he was just finished a relationship, and he was dumped. This is really hard for me even to, I forgot about this one. He was dumped because the woman, his ex-girlfriend, found out that he had diabetes, and she wasn't going to take care of or be with someone who's sick and had to take care of him.
Oh, ouch.
Even though he's an electrical engineer, providing, worked hard, very decent, kind person. I mean, he's very macho, very introvert, very stoic, very, I'm only work. And that broke him, because like this wasn't even something I could control. It was something that, and to me, I was just like, and that's kind of where I started my pathway to help men. And at first, it wouldn't budge on the karaoke, and I said, you have to just get it out, scream, let it out. You have it in there. I can see it. And I told him, like, because if you don't, that is going to transcend into something, a bigger illness for you. And it's either you are going to either scream it out, or you're going to pay the consequences later with a pretty bad illness. So let's work on screaming it out and make a fool of yourself. what's the worst that can happen? No one's going to remember you. When we went, I specifically picked this place that no one would be with. There's no way they were gonna ever.
Yeah.
I still remember him getting up on that stage, very frightened, I guess you could say, trembling. And as it went on and he let loose and he's jumping, he even started doing movements with the guitar during the whole guitar movement. It was like,
Touch base with the inner child.
that's when I realized this is my calling when I
Yeah.
was working. And I really wanted to help with others because there was no other outlet for them. And came back, sat down. He's like, wow, I needed that.
Yeah.
And other things that I also kind of work with is with I tend to work with very unusual methods where I'll go like, right, we're gonna go on a roller coaster, you're gonna scream it all out. Okay, because that's where you expect it. And these are people that are very scared to show emotions because they're very been drilled into them. So those were meant, but that's how they hold on to that and letting it out. By the time they come to see someone, they are at the last rope. So if we can find a way to provide, if you have a brother or best friend, a colleague, a co-worker, someone, asking them how are you, like really, but just asking genuinely, because you can't just go, hey, how's it going, it's just in passing. Be like, hey, I haven't talked to you for a while, how are you, how's everything?
Yeah.
We should do coffee sometime. Let's
and
catch up.
and also from the perspective of, because obviously being British, football is a big thing here. I mean, you have soccer and you have hockey and all sorts in the States, but football is, I mean, you've got other sports, football, rugby, but I can't tell you how many wives and girlfriends moan constantly, oh, they're out with the lads, they're playing football. And okay, yeah, there does have to be. I know when both are working and you've got a young family, there is limited time. And so it can feel, oh, he would prefer to be with his friends playing football than he would have spending an evening with me. But what I'd like to get across is, as a woman, look at the dynamics, look at when they're getting time, because as Sylvia rightly said, as women, we have a network, or the majority of us have a really good network of friends that will either go there, or they'll kick our asses and go, you're in the wrong there. So yeah. Men don't have that. And so very often their sports are where they vent that energy, where they vent those emotions. They don't actually speak it because they've been so programmed and trained from a very young age that to do that is wrong. And that is what we want to endeavor to change in the future. But for the moment, if that's what they're doing, don't make them feel guilty for going and playing football with the lads once a week.
Yeah.
Once a week to vent and to release is not much. Think about how many times you vent and you release within a week.
Absolutely. And I actually encourage my husband to do that sometimes. I go, hey, why don't you and your friend go for a walk, or go, they're into boats or skiing, things like that. And I tell them, you need someone that you can trust.
Yeah.
That you say, I really can't stand her right now, or she did this. Only so that you can vent it out, because it needs to come out. It needs to come out. And you can't say that to me because I'm probably going to respond to it. And even though I'm going to try myself not to, but at the end of the day, I'm still a woman, I'm still human. And no matter all the training that I have, it's not going to kick in at that moment. Sorry, it's not going to help you. So find someone that you trust. So if you're a man and you don't have anybody and you feel alone, there are groups that help groups. find in your area. Sometimes I'm not going to promote religion, but I know that a lot of churches do have men groups just for that.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of self-help groups. There are coaches, there are hikes. I think I talked about it last time, where men get together and go on hikes together. And there's different activities, but the point is, find someone to talk to.
Yeah, breath work is a big one being used now with men, and I've noticed that because they don't have to talk, they just use the breath, and then obviously they use the different breathwork techniques that actually helps them to drop into those emotions, and then they use the breath and just sound whatever sound is needed to release that. That has become, because they don't have to talk about it. They don't have to. When you've been programmed not to talk since the time you took a breath, to be honest, you're not just going to open up like that. So, and I've noticed in the UK, breath work has become a very, very, men's workshops with breath work has become very, very big, and that is helping a lot of people now, a lot of men, and it's really kind of getting them to shift from the energies that this song started with, not feeling valued, not feeling worthy, not having, not it must be, and I know this as a woman, and it's the reverse side of it, because how many times have women said, I told him that, but he never listened to me, and so and so told him exactly the same thing, and he went and did it straight away. And I've been frustrated. Men have that same, women are doing exactly the same. There are things within the home, within childcare, within what we deem to be feminine things, that men do have wisdoms that they can bring to the table, but no, we don't listen to it.
Well, here's the thing that I found really interesting when I talk a lot about men, and they always say, just give us a list. We're list people. Give us a list, and we'll get to it. We like crossing things off.
Yeah,
it gives us a sense of accomplishing something. Remember, they have been trained to provide and to work, so accomplishments mean something. So a list, even in the groceries, give it to them. Do not micromanage, and as long as it gets done, it gets done. The point was, did it get done? Was it to your liking? Yeah, but now are you trying to control something, or are you still micromanaging? Another thing as well, it's like you said with the breath work, it's mindful meditation, and that's becoming quite big with men. And there are different ways. Meditation and mindful meditation are two different things. And I would strongly suggest men should be entering into a few of them. But these are just ways for you to express yourself and let it out. The accountability here is still the fact that we as women are not listening to them, that they feel like their only value is to provide. And we have to change that, because if you as a woman want to be heard, and like you said, oh, you say it so many times and then listen to me, I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time I actively listened to him? When was the last time I actually cared what he was doing, his actual input? Because even then, when they go, where do you want to go eat? They normally just by default go to where we want to go. And so, because they don't want to pick a fight. And those are, it doesn't, at that point, those are just, it seems like insignificant things, but they're like, those are big, they add up, because they do mean something, because sometimes they're like, okay, it's never about me, what I want. It's always about her. If I want this and she doesn't, then she's gonna fight. Do I want to deal with that? No, whatever, it's easier, I don't care. But now we're not valuing that person what they want. So, and I want you to remember that when you first started dating, if your boyfriend, husband, partner came up to you and said, hey, I want to take you out to this place that I really like, enjoy, you will be all over it, because you want to put your best one. And all of a sudden, okay, you got the guy in one class, now it's all about me. No, it doesn't work that way. I would strongly suggest for you to also Even say like,
I
hey,
don't think it's as strong as it's all about me. I think what's happening is there's so much information out there, and women have been fighting for so long just to be seen and to be heard, that it is tipped the balance a little bit. And that's what I was saying about the dance. We've got to make sure that's okay. Yes, we have the right to be seen, to be heard, but so do men. And just, you know, and let's be honest, there is a lot out there on social media that says, oh well, you know, we've been in the patriarchy for so long, it's our turn now. How is that actually going to bring harmony? How is that going to bring peace? How is that going to give us equality? You don't I mean, would you allow a child to take from one child, or do you share? And it's about us learning to share. It's about, and I think women need to be reminded of this, because I know I've done it. Sometimes I've been in the fight for so freaking long and for so hard. I then have taken it home.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we need to take a breath, step back, and be really strict with ourselves to bring it into the consciousness.
Well, it's also mutual. I mean, would you like, the way I see it, would I want someone to do that to me? How would I feel if I was on that? And that's the biggest key right now, is knowing respecting that person for who they are.
Yeah.
Not what they can give.
Yeah. And that's it for today. That's bye-bye from me.
And me. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, and please leave a review, as it helps us grow and bridge the gap between the sexes. If you have any topics you would like us to cover, shoot us an email. Until next time, go out and practice putting all your cards on the table with no judgment, expectations, and fear.